I'm Katie Yates.
I'm Sam Fairbanks.
I'm Abby Chaplin.
I'm Callie Wixon.
And I'm Allison Chris, and today we'll be presenting about Knowing Your Nine.
A show of hands, how many people went to summer springboard?
Keep going. At Summer Springboard, who went to the Title IX presentation?
How many of your OPAs told you that the presentation was going to suck?
Now, how many of us fell asleep? I didn't actually.
Title IX is a diverse law which, although consisting of a mere 36 words, encompasses a broad area meant to protect, prevent, and mitigate issues involving sex-based discrimination. Students do not fully understand the policies and procedures and why they are in place.
What are the 36 words of Title IX? Title IX is a law that states, no person in the U.S. shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance.
Title IX has an extensive history, but today we're only going to focus on the main points. In 1972, Nixon signed Title IX into law, and at this time, women faced major discrimination. An example of this is that women at UVA were not allowed into the College of Arts and Sciences. At this time, also, Title IX was not taken seriously right away after it was signed. In 1998, 1980 or 90? Oh, it's 1988. Okay. The Civil Rights Restoration Act was signed. This was that any institution receiving federal funding had to comply with Title IX. Now, in 1993, Norma Cantu was appointed as a Title IX enforcer, and she emboldened lawyers to scour the country looking for women who are willing to sue on the basis of Title IX.
As discussed in Carl's article, The Strange Career of Title IX in 2016, 1996 marked the year that a Dear Colleague letter established guidelines on sexual assault. This essentially changed the focus from only athletics and higher education and more towards the effects of sexual assault on campuses. Then, in 1997, the Office of Civil Rights declared universities responsible for sexual assault. This gave way more power to victims on college campuses. And finally, under Obama's administration in 2011, the Department of Education, by means of another Dear Colleague letter, gave further clarification to Title IX's role in protection. This was seen as very controversial because it gave federal funding to more than 7,000 schools and somewhat limited their Then Dana Bolger and Alexander Brodsky in the Washington Post in September 17 reported on the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, revoking this Dear Colleague letter. And just about 2 weeks ago, another Dear Colleague letter came out that changed the standards back to 2001 standards. The ability to pursue higher education, such as grad school degrees and more professional realms of study, was also affected by Title IX.
As discussed in Kilpatrick's 2016 article, Title IX and its positive impact on education, the ability to participate in athletic organizations, increasing prominence in funding, and to create equity between male and female sports was impacted.
The ability to continue education while pregnant was another major thing that Title IX did, because before this, if women became pregnant while in college, they would be kicked out.
It also clarified the issue of sexual assault for colleges.
And finally, as most prevalent for our certain speech, it held universities responsible for sexual assault on campus. This gave its students way more resources and way more options on what to do if they did experience sexual assault.
Title IX has always been about sex discrimination and creating equity to good education opportunities. And this is a quote from Amy Rocky Meg, coordinator of the Title IX office at JMU.
How does it affect you? So in a survey in 2011 to 2013 by the NCAA, women's participation in sports increased by 6 times that of 1972. What does this mean? Title IX not only provides equality but equity. So back in the day, in 1972, men's sports were given way more funding. So now women's sports are given the same amount of funding. This doesn't mean exactly equality because men's sports and women's sports aren't given the same funding by Title IX, but rather women's sports were given funding so that they would match that of men's. So sexual assault. It is defined as any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without the explicit consent of the recipient. In a study in 2013 done by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 80% of sexual assault was not reported by college victims. Title IX looks to give students a way to report sexual assault and gives them opportunities to heal.
Why is knowing your rights important? Not complying to the Title IX requirements can lead people to danger. According to Amy Siraki-Meg, this is why Title IX requires the education everyone knows what options exist. In order to prevent, we have to educate. Education is important for everyone involved. It's even important to educate yourself. An example of this is in the case of Simpson versus University of Colorado, where the university failed to protect their students. According to the article, Avoid Title IX Lawsuits, published in College Athletics and Law in 2009, it reads, the student claimed that the institution failed to take appropriate action to prevent more harassment and that it failed to adopt and publish Title IX grievance procedures. Spacebar.
So Title IX at JMU. Under the James Madison Title IX office, this is their required statement. This is also in compliance with federal and state laws. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 is a federal civil rights law that prohibits and protects all students and employees from discriminating based on a person's sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Protection under statements include student services in admissions, medical services, academic grading, housing, athletics. Policy 1340 under Title IX at JMU includes reporting, dealing with, and attaining justice, as well as confidentiality. So how does the Title IX office directly benefit you? Resources like non-contact orders include allowing reporters and respondents to maintain space away from each other. This is similar to a restraining order, and this helps keep the people safe who are involved. Safety includes escorts to class and activities, such as having someone take you to class to make sure that there's no interaction, which upholds the non-contact order. Lifestyle changes, things like your class schedule, work shifts, if they're on campus, and housing can be altered. That way you don't have to interact with the person that might have created the sexual assault, harassment, or incident. In wellness, medical assistance, as well as counseling for the traumatic experience are available through the Title IX office. Also, you can get help withdrawing from classes and academic support. This helps, the Title IX helps bridge the gap between professors and students and allows people to have great academic success.
JMU in our policy 1340 establishes our specific responsible employee policies, which are required by the federal Title IX. A responsible employee is also known as someone who has to complete mandatory reporting of an issue if something involving sexual misconduct or discrimination comes to their information. So who is a responsible employee? Any person employed by the university. This includes professors, teaching assistants, residence advisors, administrators, and so on and so forth. When must they report? It's when it comes up to their knowledge in the regular course of their job. So if you're friends with a TA or an RA and something comes up in your friendship, they're not required to report. But if it comes up while they're teaching or while they're representing the university, they do. This goes beyond with like professors. If they're on a alternative spring break or some sort of study abroad trip and they're representing the university, they do have to report. JMU also has confidential sources. This includes the counseling center, the health center, university clergy, health educators, and confidential survivor advocates.
So this past September of 2017, our group was able to interview JMU's Title IX officer, Amy Siraki-Meg. And in this interview, she was able to explain how these policies directly influence us as JMU students. So the first question, what's the initial response from the Title IX office? And this is after a victim reports their case. Initially, Title IX office will send an email with all the resources needed on what to do and what that victim is able to do. This is a great resource because it allows the victim to take the case into their own hands and have control on what they would like to do so they can find help, like Allison was explaining.
Is there a time limit on how soon one has to reach out to resources? According to Amy Saraki-Mick, no, there's no time limit. The victim can choose to come forward after any length of time, a day or a year. It's all about how comfortable the victim feels. According to Rebecca Caldwell in Women in Higher Education, published in 2011, only 45% of people felt comfortable reporting, 28% felt neutral, and 27% felt uncomfortable or very uncomfortable.
And finally, can Title IX follow up charges if the victim does not want to? Yes, but only in dire circumstances do they normally do this. This, again, allows the victim to have control on how involved they would like to be, but it gives the Title IX office the ability to keep the rest of the campus safe.
In Weiss and Lasky's article, A Critical Perspective of Mandatory Reporters, they did discuss some critiques of the Title IX policy, which would fall under JMU's Policy 1340. Some of the critiques include a violation of trust between students and professors. JMU attempts to combat this by telling professors to warn their students multiple times in syllabus or in the first day of class that if they do come forward to them, they have to report. And in a situation where it seems like they might be confessing. And also that doesn't really consider that when students come to someone of authority, they're usually looking for help. They also critique what really needs to be reported. Title IX gives a very vague definition, and universities give a very vague definition to their employees. And it doesn't really take into consideration the reporting risk of the reason why people don't report. But JMU tries to combat that by letting people remain anonymous, only sending them emails, and only involving them in cases if they really want to be.
Education. Students need to be aware of their rights on campus and be aware of what the Title IX offices offer for them at JMU.
Prevention. Title IX can prevent students from feeling alone or hesitant about reporting about their sexual assault. Title IX gives victims a voice to make sure they have everything they need in order to continue their education.
Protection. Title IX holds universities responsible for sexual assault.
Resources. Title IX provides resources to victims to help them heal and thrive the best way they can.
Recovery. Through the policies and procedures of the Title IX office, survivors exist day to day in recovery.
Education.
Prevention.
Protection. Resources.
Recovery.
It's all us.
1 in 5.
1 in 5.